Welcome. In this session, we will be talking about floods and droughts with a special reference to India. Now, starting with floods. Floods are the regions where you have water above the normal or expected levels. So, what we would be classifying today is first the factors that affect floods, the regions which are flood prone. Then we would be talking about the basic causes, the remedies and the prevention programs. Now for essay type questions, those who are appearing for subjective papers, it's very important again that you maintain the flow. So if there is a question asked on floods in India or a related topic, it's important that you give an introduction about each of the topics first and then move in a sequential fashion that would fetch you better marks rather than clubbing all the things together. Now the first thing is the factors that affect floods. We can classify factors affecting floods into three types: the meteorological factors, geomorphic factors and anthropogenic factors. Anthropogenic factors are those factors which are human induced. So I can say cutting of trees or deforestation would lead to floods in a particular region. Then you have urbanization, shifting cultivation. Because of shifting cultivation, if you are leaving a patch of land that is barren, that can be eroded easily by the floods. So shifting cultivation, urbanization, deforestation, bursting of dams are some of the common reasons which are anthropogenic. Now moving on to meteorological and geomorphic factors. Meteorological are those which are affected by the normal climatic conditions. So heavy rainfall, I could say heavy rain. Then you have snowfall or cloudburst. These could be some of the reasons that attribute to meteorological factors. And finally you have the geomorphic factors. So geomorphic factors include poor drainage. So if there is not a proper drainage system, what would happen is there would be collection of water and that would ultimately lead to localized floods. So poor drainage system, then you have low gradient of water or low gradient slope that would lead to collection of water again, and then large catchment area. So if the catchment area is very big, then again there would be accumulation of water in a particular area. So these are some of the factors which we can broadly classify affect floods. The next is the regions affected by flood. When we are talking specifically about India, we can demarcate the regions as first the coastal regions. So along the coastal regions, it's mainly along the river meeting the ocean, either in the form of estuaries or in the form of deltas. Then you have the region of Ganga-Brahmaputra delta, you have the Satluj region and you have the region of Kutch. Now this Ganga-Brahmaputra region is considered as the biggest region which is flood prone in India. The state of Uttar Pradesh alone contributes to around 22% of the flood prone regions in India. Now some of the rivers like Kosi is known as Sauro of Bihar and Damodar is known as Sauro of Bengal. Both of these rivers are known as Sauro of the respective states because of the fact that these rivers bring heavy rain and cause floods in the nearby areas. So these are some of the basic areas that we could classify. Again, the Punjab-Haryana region, which is the meeting point for Satluj and Ghaggar and Beas river, is one of the major areas where you have floods. Now, some of the major reasons attributed to floods in this region is landslides, you have deforestation activities, urbanization activities in the cities of Punjab and Haryana specifically. So So there is a phenomena that is commonly known as urban floods these days. So if there is a heavy rainfall in an urban area, because the region is highly paved, there is no proper seepage of the water. As a result, if there are no proper sewerage lines and there is no seepage of the water will accumulate over the paved areas and it would lead to urban floods, and these urban floods are highly localized, belonging to specific areas where there is a lot of paved areas. So these are some of the terminologies that we consider while talking about floods. Now, how can we control flood? As we understood, there are various causes and factors that affect the flood. Now, what are the control mechanisms? It's very obvious. The first control mechanism would be installation of green belts. As we said, deforestation and shifting cultivation is a major cause for floods in the region. Planting of trees or tree belt, I could say, would lead to binding of the soil, because the roots of the tree go deeper and they kind of bind the soil. As a result, the process of erosion of the soil becomes slower. So green belts would be one of the primary mechanisms of flood control. Then along the river channels, when there is flood, if I say Kosi is sorrow of Bihar or Damodar is sorrow of Bengal, what does that mean? During the peak season or the season of heavy rainfall, these rivers get overflowed. As a result, the nearby areas are affected. So along the river, if there is kind of embankment or high yielded area, that would lead to protection of the water being flowed or water being moved to the peripheral regions. So embankments is another important criteria for flood control. Prohibiting constructions or pavement of the roads or the region across or nearby the flooded areas. Then management of floodplain zoning. So when there is a floodplain area, the region surrounding mainly the rivers or the ocean region, you should have a proper zoning mechanism that could be done by local authorities or government. Then decrease the level of flow. How can this be done? This can be done by few basic mechanisms. First is channelization of the stream. So stream could be channelized. As a result, there would be flow into different rivers, I could say. That is one way of channelization, and that would lead to decrease in the flood levels. The next is diversion. So if the river is going in a certain direction and it is creating a lot of havoc in that region, you could divert the path by artificially silting here or creating sand zones here. That would lead to diversion of the path of the river. That is another mechanism. Then is creation of new channels. So again, when I talk about decrease in the volume or decrease in the levels, these are some of the common steps that could be adopted. And diversion of the flood channels, as we mentioned. Decrease in the runoff. Decrease in the runoff can be done by planting more trees and by proper planning. And the most important is forecasting. So if you are able to forecast the weather conditions or the climatic conditions prior, you can know which region is about to witness a kind of heavy rainfall, and there can be preventive steps that could be taken. Now, considering these things, there was National Flood Commission or Rashtriya Baad Ayog that was established, and this National Flood Commission aimed at preventing the havoc that was caused by the various floods in the region. As a result, in 1954, there was National Flood Control Program, and under that program there were some steps that were incorporated. So this program was divided into 4 steps: the immediate help, the short term help, the long term help, and the post flood management methods. So immediate help talked about a 2 years time frame. Within that 2 years time frame, the main aim was to collect the data, provide embankments around the river channels, development of proper river channels, improve the channels and raise the height of the villages that surround the rivers. So that was the immediate term goal. The next was the short term goal, that was from 2 years till 5 years. Under the short term goal, the main aim was improve the warning mechanisms. So warning systems should be improved. Then there was surface improvement that was done, and finally the short term talked about channel diversions. The next was long term, that was from around 5 years to 10 years. So that's a kind of long term plan what should be done to control the floods in a particular area. So the main things that were included under long term objective was construction of dams, construction of reservoirs for collection of water. Then there was improvement in the land use methodology. So these were some of the long term objectives that could be achieved in a period of around 5 to 10 years. The last and the most important was post flood management. The post flood management talked about the immediate help that could be provided after the floods have occurred in the region. So it was kind of rehabilitation, rescue and relief operation, the 3 R's we could say, the rescue, relief and rehabilitation of people, then restoration of the damages in the form of electricity, power lines, providing proper food supply, checking out the accommodation facilities or providing them temporary accommodations to the people, seeing whether the agricultural activities are restored or not, checking out the losses that the farmers have incurred. So these are some of the immediate post flood management techniques that were used under the National Flood Control Program launched in 1954. So this was a kind of brief introduction about floods. The next thing that we would be discussing in this section is droughts. So droughts, I could say, is a kind of phenomena where less than expected rainfall occurs. So it is less than expected rainfall. Now it can vary in various forms and its intensity can also vary. Based on that, these are some of the types that have been demarcated for drought. So there can be meteorological drought, which means it's totally dependent on the rainfall. If I say it's totally dependent on the rainfall, we can classify it into 4 types. You have excess rainfall, you have normal rainfall, you have deficient rainfall, and you have scanty rainfall. If there is excess rainfall, means the rainfall is 20% or more than the normal rainfall. So greater than 20% or more would be the excess rainfall, greater than 20. If it is plus minus 20%, so variation is from, say, if 100 is normal, 80 to 120 range would be a normal range of rainfall. Deficient means if the rainfall is less than 20% or 60% of the normal, it would be deficient rainfall. And scanty rainfall means if the rainfall is less than 60% of the normal rainfall that occurs. So that is what is scanty rainfall. So these are the 4 criteria based on which we define meteorological drought. So conditions of deficit and scanty rainfall are really serious and that could lead to severe meteorological drought. The next is hydrological drought. Hydrological drought especially focuses on depletion of the groundwater. So if I classify water, I can say water could be either surface water or groundwater. So if the groundwater water table goes down, the water that is being pumped by tube wells, etc. would take a lot of problem. So that is depletion of the groundwater, and depletion of the groundwater is a major threat and it would lead to hydrological drought. The next is agricultural drought. Agricultural drought says if there is inadequate soil moisture. So if the soil moisture is inadequate, it would lead to agricultural drought. As a result, it would affect the growth of crops. The next is soil moisture. Again, if it is less than normal or less than expected soil moisture, it would lead to cracking of the soil. That is the soil moisture drought. The next is socio-economic drought. Socio-economic drought affects the food availability. So there would be decline in food availability in a particular region. That would lead to socio-economic drought. The next is famine. Famine is a kind of mass starvation that occurs and that affects a kind of set of people. I could say thousands to millions of people are affected under famine, and it is a kind of mass starvation where people go without food. In say villages and villages turn out without food. And the next is ecological drought. Ecological drought is environmentally induced distress that affects a region. So this diagram helps you understand the various kind of droughts. So as you can see, if there is a variation in the climatic factors, that would lead to either less rainfall or high temperature, low humidity and more of sunshine. In both of the cases, if there is high temperature and less humidity, it would lead to more evaporation, while if there is less rainfall, it would lead to decrease in the runoff. Both the cases lead to meteorological drought. If both the cases increase than normal, it would lead to soil water deficiency, and that would be the cause of either agricultural drought or soil moisture drought, we can say. Because there is deficiency of water in the soil, what would happen is the plants would come under the stress. So there would be reduced biomass and reduced yield from the plants. That would lead to reduction in the flow of water, and the wildlife would also be affected. That would be hydrological drought. This would lead to decrease in the availability of food. It could cause economic or social impacts, and this would again lead to socio-economic drought. And if this becomes severe and it causes environmental effects, it would lead to ecological drought. Now, what are the basic causes and effect of the drought? When I say cause of the drought, there can be few causes that we can clearly mention, that is less rainfall, delay in monsoon, there is frequent breakdown in the monsoon months, and early withdrawal of monsoon. So these are, I could say, the basic 4 causes that affect the drought. Now what are the effects of drought? If I say effects of drought, I could again classify it as physical effects, agricultural effects and socio-economic effects. Now this is very simple to understand. Since we already talked about the types, in the similar form we are talking about the effects. So if I say there is physical effect, what would happen is there would be less of soil moisture, there would be lot of surface runoff, and all these conditions would lead to physical drought. The next is agricultural drought. There would be decrease in the crop production or crop yield, decrease in biomass, and that would affect the agriculture of the region. And finally you have socio-economic effects that would lead to lack of food availability, mass starvation, social stress. It would lead to fertility. It can lead to problems of infiltration and migration. So these are some of the socio-economic effects that could be caused. Now we have understood what is drought, the causes, the types of drought, the causes and the effects of the drought. Now the most important thing is, how can we manage drought? Now when we talk about management of droughts, The most important thing is understanding the difference between what is relief and what is management. So there are two terms which appear to be similar, but there is huge difference between the two. The one talks about the relief from the drought and one talks about management of the drought. When I say relief from the drought, that means drought has already affected that area, and what is done is how to bring people out of the problems they are suffering due to drought. How can this be done is providing them better food facilities or food availability through the PDS or the public distribution system. Now this process of drought relief is, since I am saying that region has already been affected by drought, what has happened there is there are problems of socio-economic problems, that is lack of food availability. So people are being affected. Because of that, there could be increase in crime rates or increase in social deviance behavior. So this is what is done under drought relief, and government can intervene only during winter months when the rain is over and there is time for the harvesting season for Kharif. However, drought management is a technique under which there are preventive steps taken in order to curb the drought or the conditions of drought to become severe in a particular region. As a result, the government tries to provide ad hoc relief projects, which says that due to low rainfall in this season, there can be chances that there can be drought in a particular area, because of which government is taking preventive steps to provide temporary relief measures in that area. So what could be the parameters? The parameters could be the amount of rainfall in that region, the monsoon variability. Based on that, the government tries to intervene only in the monsoon months and see if there could be better facilities that could be provided, and that could lead to management of drought. Now, there are numerous drought management plans that have been introduced by government. We would be covering these in more detail under the contemporary issues that we will be discussing later. For now, we will be just touching the main topics. So the first is Integrated Wasteland Development Program. So Integrated Wasteland Management Program talks about three things. First is the Desert Development Program that aims to provide development facilities in the desert. Then is Drought Prone Area Program. This area covers around 629 blocks in around 13 states of the country, and this explains that this region that are affected or are under the impact of drought. So it try to classify the area which is drought prone or could be affected by drought in near future. And the last is Integrated Wasteland Development Program. So it talks about developing all the land that is left as a part of wasteland or barren land and improving the methodology for agriculture in that area. Besides these programs, there is another important program that has been released by the government, that is the Crop Weather Watch Group. Now what does this program do? The Crop Weather Watch Group talks about it's a program which talks about the weather and explains the farmers which crops could be suitable for which weather. This was introduced by Ministry of Agriculture, and it's a kind of 12-point program which considers the need of the farmer and provides them guidelines as to which crops should be grown in which time frame. This concept also covers the problem of Trikal. Trikal includes Akal, Jalkal and Trinkal. So Akal means shortage of food, Jalkal means shortage of water, and Trin means straw. So Trinkal means fodder. So shortage of food, water and fodder respectively are covered under the Crop Weather Watch Group program, which was recently launched by Ministry of Agriculture in 1979. So these are some of the highlights of the drought management programs that we have talked about. We will be covering each of these programs in further details under the topic of contemporary issues that we will be discussing in geography. And these topics, I would like to say here that it's important that you try to include the recent information based on these topics, the recent developments, or if there is a program merger, the proportion of the contribution of union to state and something like that, if something has changed or new states are being included. So keep an eye on the latest newspaper and try to include the updated information for any of such programs that are launched by government for your essay type questions, specifically for UPSC. We will be covering more topics related to geography of India and geomorphology simultaneously. So you can subscribe to our channel for any further updates. Have a good day ahead.